So should we record this and then pick it back
Yeah.
up?
I started recording once you pop back in.
Oh, okay. Then I'm sorry. I'm walking around and looking like I'm not paying attention.
You're just walking around. You were just walking.
After my intense hike, I needed a little bit of tap water.
You're drinking water like a savage.
To wash down all the exercise.
All the fresh air there in
Oakland.
In Oakland,
yeah.
But yeah, I just can't. Man, you're just really missing out on the flavor enhancement.
So for those of you who have made it this far into this stuff, first of all, congratulations and thank you. Second of all, I thought this call was going to be about an intervention where Chris was going to teach me all of the health hazards of drinking tap water, because Chris is an avid believer in bottled water being a vastly superior product than water that comes out of this savage tap, as you call it.
I'm just concerned that Andrew doesn't have any plastic to recycle.
That is fair. That's a concern.
So, I try to make sure that I do a good amount of recycling, and so my water habit plays a big part in that, so that I can generate the plastic, generate the required plastic.
You're doing good things for the world there, sir. Good things.
I'm trying to do my part. That's what I'm trying to do.
Yes.
Hey guys, I'm here with the vice president, the first vice president, Andrew Cohen. We're going to do something just a little bit different. Instead of me interviewing somebody, we're going to talk a little bit about ourselves and our practices and kind of compare and contrast 1 year of owning your own practice versus 14 years, and hopefully get some good dialogue going. So how you doing tonight?
I love it. Thanks so much for having me on your show. I'm excited to talk to you and all of your listeners. Is that what are you drinking there? A bottled water. Wow, that looks delicious. I know that you strictly drink the bottled water.
I strictly drink the best. Tonight we're drinking the purified drinking water with the flavor enhancing minerals.
Whoa.
They are very delicious.
All right. That sounds delicious. And that sounds like a unique selling proposition that they have, and that they have just flavor enhancing minerals.
Yeah.
What about you? You're a year into practice plus. What's your unique selling proposition? Do you have any wonderful minerals that you're enjoying that makes you unique as a chiropractor?
Well, I'm glad that you asked that, because so down here in Arizona, so I practice in Queen Creek along with my wife. And that in and of itself makes us a little bit unique, because we are a husband and wife team. I think it makes us a little unique in the community here, maybe not so much in the community of chiropractors. I think we all know quite a few husband and wife teams, but within our community, we are kind of unique there. And so that gives us the ability to really serve families well, because the my wife Erica, she can take care of the moms and the kids a lot, and I take care of the rest of the family. So that's kind of become a unique selling proposition for us, just the tighter family community. So how about yourself up there in San Francisco?
So you have what it sounds like is more of a family practice, where you're seeing kids all the way up through grandparents and stuff, it sounds like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Our practice in San Francisco, I'm right in the heart of the financial district, and we sort of target the tech/lawyer professional that's in love with their outdoor activities on the weekend, whether that's marathons or triathlons or whatnot. So our sweet spot's kind of 35 to 50. And it is a even split 50-50 amongst genders. But I think that what makes us unique is that we aren't an insurance-based practice. We're a sports-based practice that's cash, which means that I always phrase it, we're going to do whatever the heck it takes today to get you feeling better by the time you walk out. So we may not always get you better in one visit, but similar to any of the chiropractors who are listening who have worked an event where your goal is to get that person back out to play as soon as possible. And whether that means adjusting soft tissue, taping, giving them a few stretches or exercises, some myofascial work, whatever it is, that's what we do in our practice. So our visits are a little bit longer than many other practices, and we tend to see people fewer visits. Our average is 4.7 visits for our care plan, which is a little bit less than many other offices. What's your average?
I was actually just getting ready to say that one of the big differences that I can already see between the 14 years and the 1 year is that you have a lot better and more more inconsistent data, more specific data than what we may have. Our case visits are about between 6 and 8 right now.
Okay.
So we kind of still try to follow a more conservative schedule or care planning. And that's another thing that's made us unique is that we're kind of in between, in that sweet spot between the chiropractor who says, hey, whenever you hurt, come and see me. But we're also not, hey, you have to sign up for 36 visits or 24 visits or whatever that is. So we've kind of got all those all those other chiropractors are kind of in the area, and so we're kind of the middle ground there. And we pretty much just plan one stage of care at a time. So we usually start with 6 visits and then reevaluate from there. And see if they're ready to drop back from there. So, and a lot of them are, obviously getting well quicker than that. So we're about 6 to 8. So, but
I definitely echo what you said, which is, I think as you get more data and more clinical experience, you get to pinpoint how much care a person needs better and better. Mm-hmm. So I wouldn't be surprised if, as you're doing it longer, instead of just being like sort of guessing where it is, you'll have enough experience to guess a little bit better. And we always end up guessing sometimes, and it doesn't work out. So
right.
And I think that's kind of one of the key things about being a sports chiropractor is being able to be agile and shift around depending on if that person is doing the home care, if that person is listening or still trying to train at their same intensity, despite the fact that they need to be shifting to another sport or whatever to relax.
Absolutely.
Or give the body a chance to recover.
So what kind of stuff, another thing that I picked up on when you were talking was the very specific avatar or target market, so to speak. So do you use that as part of your marketing plan, or are you even really marketing at this point, or how is that a part of your practice?
Yeah, I would say it factors into the way we design our website, how we phrase things online. Yeah, that's a goat. I'm not sure if you guys are used to having goats around during your conference calls, but around here we have goats.
Wow. Okay.
Just like hanging out. Yeah. So when you hear the goat noise, that means
I thought that was your ringtone.
Yes. So I think as I've gotten, similar to what you just said, as I've gotten more comfortable with my numbers, I've also gotten more comfortable with who my message resonates with. And I didn't set out to be a sports chiropractor. I didn't necessarily identify as an athlete. It's just I wanted to try to create a situation where patients weren't as reliant and I could teach them a lot and they would value their health enough to be an active participant along the process. And from there, I started attracting athletes, some professional, some amateur, some weekend warriors. And so once I started seeing that was a group that seemed to be drawn towards our practice mission, then we started kind of changing the photos on the website and the way that we talked about it. And our website is proactivesf.com. And we just did a whole makeover on it. And a lot of what we put on there now, there's no way I would have thought to put half of that stuff 10 years ago. It's really focused on those specific numbers, how our results over time, how many patients are satisfied with us, our ratings on Yelp. Those are things that it seems like our patients are calling and sort of asking about, or are very, very curious at the first visit. So we're just trying to put that out there right away so that they feel like they're in the right spot. Or if that isn't something that resonates with them and they are someone who is used to a sort of a less expensive, quicker visit, where we do have people call us and say, hey, can I just come in for a quick adjustment? And we say, no, we need to do a full evaluation on you and figure out what's happening. That turns some folks away. So we're trying to be as clear about everything as we can up front as we get to figure that out over time.
Very good.
That makes sense?
Yeah. Where do most of your patients come from? The website? Is that where they find you, or?
Yeah. I'm curious what it's like in Arizona, but it seems like probably 40% come from word of mouth from our current patients or previous patients. And then probably like 30% come from Yelp. I think 30% from Google. So that leaves.
Did that add up to 100%?
Yeah.
I think you might have went over 100.
No.
Oh.
40 and 30 and 30.
Oh, okay. I thought there was another category in there. Okay.
So 40% are current patients or marketing efforts, like of previous patients.
Okay, yeah.
And I would include in there, like where I started, I didn't have the reviews. I didn't have the patients. So where I started was face-to-face marketing efforts like BNI or Toastmasters or Chamber of Commerce events, which are all the ones you hear about, but also just going out into the community, not like trying to sell myself, which is what a lot of people are told to do, but I never really felt that comfortable with like walking around with a flyer or anything like that. But just as I'm talking to people, trying to slip in that I help people who are in pain, or I help get people better. And then maybe they ask, how do you do that? And I go into how I'm a different kind of chiropractor. Because I think, unfortunately, people, if you just say like, hey, I'm a chiropractor, it shuts down a lot of conversation. So if you can get them curious enough to ask a question or two, then that's really useful, because then they get to see you before they get to see whoever it is they think of when they think of a chiropractor. And it starts to like rewrite who they're thinking about when they think about chiropractors.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. We've definitely made it a point to become involved in the community. We're not neither one of us is from here. We don't have any family here, so we didn't know anybody when we moved here and opened. So it was just right from the get-go, just getting involved and getting to know people, and not so much with the idea of I'm going to try to sell you and I'm going to try to get you into my office, just that we're getting to know you. And I think that's another thing that's made us stand out over some of the other folks that, and not necessarily chiropractors, but other small businesses that some of them already, I believe I've already seen a few go out of business. And they were the hardcore, I have to sell everybody I talk to. I'm always closing. I'm always selling everybody that I'm talking to. I think, there's definitely a time and a place for that, but there's also a time and a place to get to know people and just become part of that, whatever the community is that you are in, I guess.
Absolutely. And I think trying to figure out, and no one really talks about this, or at least they didn't when I was in school, like trying to figure out what feels right for you. And I think everyone just says what works for them, and they'll like, oh, spinal screenings is a huge part of my practice, or oh, like I would hand out flyers at the gym, or whatever it is. I think if it doesn't feel authentic to you, then you're not going to get people from that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all about trying to figure out, if you love squash or you love golf, like do those things and think of them as marketing. And when you're out there, try to at least say hi and talk to people. So, yeah,
I think that authenticity thing is really important. I was actually just talking to one of the guys I graduated with late this afternoon in between a couple patients, and him and his wife actually just opened a practice as well. Actually, they graduated before us, and they actually were associates out in LA for a little while. And we get all these different, hey, this is how you talk to patients. This is what this is what you're supposed to say, and this is how you present it to them, and this is how you put your care plans together. This is how you present the care plans, and all these things. But for us, things really started getting much better when we figured out what made sense to us and what we believed in. And then we were able to present that to patients the way that makes sense to us and the way that makes is just congruent with what we think and believe and not what somebody else does. And I feel like we're having a lot more success that way than when we were trying to mimic somebody else.
So what would you say makes sense to you? I really like what you said. So you said when you explain what makes sense to you, what would you say that is?
Well, for me is a lot of it is just explaining just how I explain chiropractic to patients. That I always start off with that I take a very mechanical approach to what I think their problem is. We're going to try to isolate what tissue is the problem, and that's what we're going to work on. And we're going to, kind of work on that, I guess. And then coupling that with, like what I was saying about how we do the care plans, where we kind of take each stage as it goes. Like we're going to start out with one stage, and then we're going to reevaluate. We're going to see where we're at, and then go to the next stage, rather than trying to force an entire care plan all at once. Like that just doesn't make sense to us, because there's no way to know how each patient's going to respond. So why am I planning 3 stages of care on the first visit, or in the first visit or 2, even depending on how you do that? So I think that's one of the things that we really maybe was a challenge for us, or struggle, was just kind of figuring out really what we were comfortable with and what we thought even. I mean, that's kind of a hard battle sometimes for somebody new coming out of school. And we opened our clinic straight out of school. So we had almost the only experience we had was from the clinic at school. I did do a really brief internship or clerkship, I think they called it, with the VA hospital. But there's still just not enough for you to get comfortable. And I'm sure that another 13 years from now, the way that I handle things will be completely different than what they are now too.
Yeah, but I think what you're saying is, by being humble and not trying to pretend like you know everything, that in a sense is being unique, in that people are so used to going to doctors who throw them in a bucket, that this is what you have, this is what you need to do, and sort of like disempowering them. So when you start saying, hey, I don't know everything, I'm gonna do the best I can, I think we should have some great results in 6 visits, and we'll reassess, then I think people are really drawn to that. So kudos to you for figuring that out in such a quick period of time, because a lot of times people just cookie cutter for the first 3 to 5 years and just do whatever they were taught in student clinic or from a mentor or whatever it is. So I think you're ahead of schedule.
I hope so.
Yeah.
All right, so we have hit that pretty hard. So let's talk briefly about how you.
So much for 5 minutes. Whoops.
So much for 5 minutes of topic there. I mean, I think we definitely pulled 2 in there together. So let's talk about overhead and how did you. So maybe I'll go first on this one. So
okay, hit me.
So we opened our office. We thought we were going to get a business loan.
Okay.
And we actually got of course, we couldn't finish processing the business loan until we actually had our lease signed. Some kind of rule of SBA or something like that. And so we actually got our space and got opened up to find out that I think we opened on July 5th, which I believe was a Wednesday. And I think it was Friday that I got the phone call that the SBA loan had completely fallen through. So
wow.
we had enough, ended up having enough savings. But we opened with we collected some tables over through school. We had a couple hand-me-downs. And then it's still my main table is a bench. And I bought it from a chiropractor while I was in school for $100. I found a roller table for $100. I'm still doing that. I just bought an old compression table from 1984 for $100 off of Facebook, and getting it all. I mean, I am getting the traction unit refurbished, but I mean, it's a $5,000 setup for $100. So we have gotten really good about doing things very, very low, and so we've managed to keep our overhead low. And I think that is still the lesson. There's two lessons. I just figured out what I'm going to say for my other lesson. But that first lesson is when you hear people telling you, like, I mean, I heard people telling me that when they knew, oh, you're going to open your own. Well, make sure you keep your overhead low. And like, you hear that, but you don't, there's still a part of it, and you might even take it to heart, but there's still a part of it that you don't take. There's always something else you could have done more to keep that overhead low. And so, like, I look back on it now, and I'm just like, oh, I could have cut a corner there. I could have, maybe not actually rented an entire office right off the bat. Maybe started with a couple rooms somewhere and got going that way. And that could have saved a significant amount of overhead there. And so there's just always ways. And so we started with very, very low. So now we have one part-time front desk person who's my right hand. She saves both of us almost every time she's in the office. She'll hear, I mean, we've just been really, really blessed to have hired her. Yeah, so that's kind of our story.
I like it. I think you're absolutely right that you hear keep your overhead low, but then you also hear you have to look professional.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be presentable. And so those things sometimes conflict. And so it's easy to be like, well, I'm keeping my overhead low. I'm only buying a $3,000 table instead of a used $100 table. And so I think that is one of the best pieces of advice, because some of the best chiropractors in my class no longer practice because they dealt with bankruptcy, they bought into franchises, they bought expensive equipment, because that's what you're supposed to do to be successful. I, similar to you, kind of try to do it on the cheap. I rented a room in a chiropractor's office, had no windows. I didn't have a window for the first 6 years of practice, because I was basically in like a closet, and it was tiny. It fit like a tiny little desk and a tiny like shelf, and then my chiro table. So that did give me the ability, and I know this isn't very sexy if you are kind of a newer doc, and it's also strange that it looks like I'm in witness protection, because no one could see me anymore. I didn't realize that this
we need a voice changer.
I think we do. I didn't realize the phone call was going to be a video call, and so I went out for a hike, and then I'm like, oh, okay, I can make this work with my cell phone. Anyway, so I had this space, and I would say, to kind of echo what you said, but also give you a little bit of kudos, I think I took the keep your overhead to heart, and was pretty excessive about it, and that I didn't hire my first employee for like 5 years. And I do think there's something magical about having someone else in your office, who isn't treating them, who can handle the payments, who kind of allows you to keep that doctor hat on. And I don't think you need to do it straight out of school, because it is important that you've experienced the role that you're trying to hire someone for.
Yep.
So I think you probably did it perfectly, especially by hiring someone part-time. I remember when I finally went to hire my first person full-time after being in practice for like 5 years or so, it felt like a really scary situation, because now I have someone dependent on me. And I have to figure out how to come up with that salary out of what I'm doing. So it's such a cool profession that we get to help people, but also employ people and watch ourselves sort of ebb and flow in what it is we're focused on. And I think the cool thing is, like, you're a year and a half out or 2 years out, the things that like you're focused on now as your stressors will not even be there in 2 years. Like, you'll have a whole different set of stressors. So like the same thing is true now, 14 years into practice. Like, the things I dealt with 2 years ago, like, it's not even on my radar anymore. So now I'm dealing with like a whole nother level of issues. So it's cool that you just like are constantly evolving as a business owner. And I totally understand why you would want to go work for someone. I mean, not you necessarily, but like why someone would want to just go work for someone, get a salary, show up at work, help people, leave, and not have to deal with the crazy business stuff at the end of the night, and trying to deal with contractors who are dealing with marketing things or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
So lawyers that deal with your contract, and
yeah, we had that conversation.
Brokers to find your space.
Yeah, we don't really have a conversation, but every once in a while we say that, like, what, boy, we could have both just went and got jobs.
Yeah,
but instead,
I remember taking the BART to work. BART's like our Bay Area rapid transit, like our subway. And for the first like 6 or 7 years of practice, being like, I cannot believe the person driving this train makes way more money than I do as a doctor, entrepreneur. And everyone's like, oh, you're a doctor. Like, oh, you're fancy. I'm like, you don't even understand like how much work it takes. And then the fact that like, I don't make like what I feel like I should be making based on the amount of output on student loans and all that kind of stuff. And it does add up and it gets great again, like with time and all that. But in the beginning, man, it is weird.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1,
action. All right, so we're back, and Andrew survived his hike there. The goats didn't get him, and none of the other crazy did. Well, hopefully they didn't. So we were talking about keeping overhead low and staff, and kind of the differences in how we've approached it and how Andrew approached it, and kind of the differences there. And I did want to say one of the really important things that I'm kind of living by, and I think it's true, and I'm hoping it's true because it's what I'm doing these days. And that is that even before you hire staff or before you transfer duties or jobs to them, you need to make sure that you learn everything about it and you're able to do it all yourself. And maybe, yeah, that you just need to be able to do it yourself before you let somebody else do it, before you're paying someone else to do it. And even on those things that you may not know that you know how to do, just give it a try and learn as you go. And once you feel like you got a good hand on, then go ahead and maybe consider hiring somebody to do it or transferring it off your plate. But you need to know how to do it, because Man, there's so many people that are taking advantage of.
Yes.
Oh, that's what we were talking about. We were talking about how
Being
people
taken advantage of?
No, we were talking about how so many people automatically assume because you're a doctor that you just make so much money, and that was what led me up to you need to make sure that you know how to do it before you hire someone else, because there are a lot of people that are out there that will take advantage of you if you don't know. So,
and I think I want to take that further to those docs who have been in practice for a while, more than 5 years or whatever. The key thing to do on the flip side of what you were just saying, Chris, is as you get busier and your time could be spent with patients, you need to figure out what your hourly bill rate is, what you actually get paid, and then tasks that you can outsource at that point. Once you've understood how to do them, it is really important and valuable that you, as Tim Ferriss says in 4 Hour Work Week, that you kind of pass along those tasks that you may not be the best at anymore. Like you may be the best at working with new patients and seeing patients, but you're not the best at bookkeeping. So it took me until this year to hire a full-time bookkeeper. And before that, it was something that I didn't trust other people to manage. And it was something I kind of was prideful that I dealt with it myself. But in reality, me spending 3 hours a month on QuickBooks didn't make any sense, because I'm not as good as someone else who could probably do it in an hour and a half and make sure everything was right. And I'm like pulling out my hair. So I think both things are really important to know how to do it, but also when to delegate it to someone else.
Always kind of playing that balancing act of practice.
Yeah.
All right. Do you have any other, I think I've mentioned two big lessons. And I might've kind of stole at least one of yours. Do you have any other big lessons that have come to mind as we've gone along?
I think a lesson that I keep falling or refusing to learn is there's no shortcuts in getting new patients. Because when I hire a new associate, I need to dramatically increase the number of new patients from when it's just me or when it's just me and one other doc. So I have fallen for some of the things that most people would fall for, which is like Facebook ads, search engine optimization, hiring people. And that was kind of what you were alluding to, which is like learn the stuff before. Hiring a newspaper to run press releases, dealing with different like email campaign management things that never really returned on the investment. I didn't have a return on investment. So I think there's not a lot of shortcuts. I think the one kind of lesson that I have learned in the last few years is it's difficult sometimes, especially in a cash practice like I have, to get people to buy in 100% for a new patient visit. So trying to give them a little bit of a taster of what it is you do and how you're different, whether that's with a free like consultation or a free phone call, or going and giving a talk somewhere where you're actually like face to face with people. And then offer them, one thing I would say is offer them some kind of follow-up. And I think a lot of times I would go give talks and I would just say, like, if you're interested, contact me. And what I started doing is, if you're interested, let me collect your email and I'm going to send you a report or send you like a handout for all the things we just discussed, plus some that we won't have time to go over today. So I get to collect a little bit of information from them. So then I follow up with them. I have their information. I give them the exercises I recommend or whatever it is, but it gives me one more contact point for them to have me in their email box, and down the road, even if they don't come in and see me now, they'll be like, hey, who was that guy? And they'll be able to look me up a lot easier. So I think that's something that everyone could be using right now, which is instead of going and giving a talk and just saying like, here's my card. Obtain some of their information and follow up with that and give them a little bit more than what they promised. So if you told them you were going to give them 3 tips on how to avoid injury, give them like 9 things in a video or whatever, and in an email, and they'll be like, oh my God, like Life Aligned Chiropractic, those guys are not like a normal chiropractor. They go above and beyond. And I think that's the key lesson that I wish I would have learned early on, where before I was just like, hey, schedule a new patient visit with me. We'll get you all figured out. So that's a big leap to go from, hey, I kind of hurt, let me come see you. So, wow, like, I don't know, there's so many other options. Maybe I should go see someone else who's cheaper, or someone else who is next door to me. And I don't really want to go downtown. That's kind of a pain, or whatever it is. But if you give them a chance to show how you're different, then you're going to excel.
Yeah, I don't think you can ever go wrong with providing value to people, even just kind of going back to just that being authentic and being yourself and getting to know people without that hard sell. I mean, I guess really if you just kind of finish the talk and you just say, hey, give me a call if you need something, that's almost like neither. That's almost like it's not a hard close. And you're also just leaving things completely open for them to just walk away and just completely forget about you. But when you're able to start providing value to them, even if your value is able to fix their problem, like if the tips you give them takes care of whatever it is, when it doesn't next time, or when one of their friends has a problem, you've already provided them value. So they already have a relationship. They already trust you. And so it's going to be real easy for them to make that quick referral and be confident that when they make that referral to you of one of their friends or family, that they're going to come back and say, hey, thanks. That guy really is good. And not like, well, there's this chiropractor that I heard did this talk one time, and I think he said something about what you're having. So, and in that case, they might even just say, hey, why don't you try a chiropractor? They might not even come back to you. But if you've already solved a problem for them or helped them out, then it's going to be an easy no-brainer for you. And that's playing the long game. That's not – I mean, and I think that's something else that people get so wrapped up in the short game. I got to get a new patient now. I got to find somebody right now. And, man, 1 year in, 14 years in, it's a long game. It's not about what you get in the office today. It's about what's coming to the office for the next 10 years.
Yeah, I think that's such a cool piece, because you'll see someone once you've been in practice long enough. I mean, just yesterday I saw a patient who I hadn't seen in 6 years. And I was like, wow, what has been happening? Like, your kids were like 1 when I saw you last. Like, what's going on? So it's really neat, because it's easy to think that they didn't like you, or maybe something went wrong, or your office screwed up, but in most cases, people just get busy and they're not in pain, and their priorities shift. So,
or not enough pain.
yeah. Their priorities shift. So that's cool that they think of you after that and come be. Anyway,
right, well, any other closing thoughts
with this?
Yeah, I think so too. I think that was good stuff.
And we should also say, the ACAA Sports Council has a mentorship program.
Yep.
And I think it's safe to say, if anyone has made it through this podcast or chat, whatever this will be, video cast, and they want to reach out to either one of us and ask kind of like what things, like more questions about some of the topics we discussed, and we'd be more than happy to help anyone. And we want all chiropractors to be successful. And
absolutely.
I'd be more than happy to do that. I'm sure Chris would too.
Absolutely.
He's the matchmaker, the rainmaker,
the dream maker,
the dream maker. He can make your dreams come true.
All right. So let's make a quick shout out to the symposium coming up in Minneapolis here in about 6 weeks now, 7 weeks.
I just bought my flights today.
Did you? I got to get mine too. So, all right. Well, super excited. Check out the website for that. Hopefully you've already been on the website. If you've made it, for sure, if you've made it this far, you're a pretty hardcore ACA Sports Council member, I think.
Yeah. And come up and talk to us in Minnesota, and shit, I'll buy you a beer if you made it through this way.
And I'll have a bottle of water for you.
All right, there it is. You'll hydrate. It'll be important.
That's right.
Hydrate after your beer.
All right.
All right.
So that's
thanks so much.
Yep.
Thanks for bearing with me on my night adventure out in the town in the woods, and I look forward to our next chat. Thanks so much for hosting, Chris.
All right. Thank you for being on it, and we'll catch you next time.
All right. Thanks. Bye.